right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Waiting for people to start attending. Ooh, we have a lot of people starting to roll in. We will start very soon with this distribution fund DevNext webinar. Hello, everybody. So happy to see so many people here coming into the webinar. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to log in, so we'll start about 3 minutes past the hour. Hope everybody is doing wonderful and well, and that they're safe and happy out there in the world right now. So hold on, I'm actually, oops, I'm going to be making some lighting changes here. Got a good amount of people. Ooh, we stopped at 500. I wonder if we had a limit for a number of people who can attend. If somebody on the other side of this could take a look and see if we increased the number, because we had a hard stop at 500. I think we might be excluding some people from the webinar by accident. Hey, everybody. So good to see so many awesome welcome messages coming in. So happy. Very cool, guys. Anantha is not nervous at all. Yeah, maybe somebody on the support side in the back can see about increasing the number of attendees. We've been hard locked at 500. So I think we might be having some people that are being excluded. While we're waiting, let me go in and take a look and have this all set up. Hold on 1 minute. Let's go ahead and let's get ready here. Let me double check something. All right, so we're checking to see about allowing more people to come in. I see. Hey there, Danielle. Hi, everybody. All right. We'll wait for another minute for more people to show up, but it looks like we're probably going to be starting anyway right now. So let's just do that. You know what? I'm just going to kick in. So how you doing, everybody? I'm Bill Manning. I am one of the solution engineering managers here at JFrog. I'm going to be the host today. I also do a ton of webinars and stuff that we do here. But today I am super happy to announce for this is our distribution website, workshop. This will be doing everything from like how to use our distribution side, things like how to deploy web services, how to get release bundles out to where they need to be, how to do things like multi-site and whatever. But basically the idea is getting the things you build to where they need to be, whether it's your end customers, whether it's a web service. At the end, we'll touch upon our IoT platform called JFrog Connect. And actually on December 13th, there'll be another one of these workshops where we'll be talking about IoT, and we'll be talking about the Connect product. But as stated, I'm Bill Manning. I'd like to introduce Anantha. Anantha, say hi and give a quick intro on who you are.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Anantha Kaliswalingam. I'm a solution architect within DevOps Acceleration Group in JFrog. Nice to meet you all.
Excellent. We're so happy to have you here giving this talk today. Anantha is one of our amazing solution engineers and solution architects. Totally appreciate this guy for everything he does and for not only us, but for all the companies he works with. Let's go to the next slide. We have some basic housekeeping that we're going to talk about. So by the way, if you have any questions, Anantha will be going through this. I will be monitoring the Q&A channel. So I will be answering any of these questions, giving you guys links. If you'd like some assistance, the thing is that we have very limited assistance in this case. We were going to have another individual on here from our support team. He got carried off to go help with something else currently right now. Then on top of that, the thing is that, if you need any feedback or anything during this time, please, shoot a message in here. Also, too, make sure you have your lab environment. If you don't, check your email and things. We don't have time right now to kind of go in and work on that stuff. But we will, the thing is is that we'll do our best with that. So let's go ahead to the next piece. And before we get started, make sure you have access to the SaaS instance. If you don't, please do your best. I'm actually going to go ahead to you and I'm going to copy over the actual DevNext Git repo for everybody to use. And actually, we should put that into the chat and see who has access to that. Make sure you have at least an IDE available. And also, too, if you have a Docker client, make sure you have your Docker client up and running. Next slide. There we go. So for the agenda, we're going to have Anantha talk about SDLC and the importance of distribution. We're going to talk about distribution with our release lifecycle management stuff, which is our JFrog release bundle V2. He's going to demo our new release bundles. We're also going to talk about release bundles V1. He's also going to do a quick connect and demo and then wrap it up. So without further ado, Anantha, this is all you, buddy, and I will be sitting here on mute, monitoring the Q&A channel. Everybody sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Hi, everyone. So let's talk about software distribution. One part of our life, always we were like having some kind of development, even from our high school days. We normally do some kind of coding and then build something. And then once your software is developed, once your software binary has been placed in somewhere, the next steps in your SDLC lifecycle, it could be tested by somebody, or it could be deployed into a production instance, or maybe somewhere else you shared with the customers. That's kind of like a little bit of black box for most of the folks, like when they started their career. So this is where we think that, okay, in the SDLC lifecycle, if you look at like in a different parts of it, which one is the critical? The distribution is the most critical piece, I would say that, because it needs some kind of maturity to get into that distribution cycle to make your SDLC lifecycle more effective. Some of that examples you can see here, like in the bullet points, you can see that the integration stages are maybe the testing phases in your pipeline. So once it gets developed, all your CI processes compiles it and then puts that artifact in somewhere. So that needs to be tested by some of your testing teams or maybe some peer review. You need to move that binary from one place to other place. So that's one of the critical things. And once it gets certified, you need to deploy it in a production instances where it gets consumed by your end users or maybe some other internal or external users. So that is also the last mile of the conversations. So if you look at that, the software distribution is definitely critical for your entire SDLC lifecycle. And then actually the speed also impacts the delivery speed because the more you kind of like can think about how quickly you can distribute the binaries to the next stages, even into the production, that brings like the business continuity in a better position actually. So that's important. So let's go and then talk about a flexible distribution mechanism, because as we discussed in the previous slide, distribution is very key component to your SDLC lifecycle. What are all the key factors it brings into that fact? The speed, because the velocity is important for your sprint cycle, as well as like how fast you can develop and deliver your software to your end users is important. And then probably the scale is also a factor here. There could be startup companies, you might be having like 2 or 3 applications up and running, but by the time a blink of an eye, you could be in enterprise mode. You could be having like 50 different applications in your organizations. You wanted to see like how fast I can scale my distribution processes and then get this into production actually. And the more the applications and the process are in place, definitely the visibility takes a backseat. Because as a senior management folks, but definitely we wanted to see like what goes in every pipeline, every environment. So the visibility of that entire SDLC lifecycle for all the applications within an organization is key component as well. And the next thing is like the trust. How do we trust? Even though you might be promoting some of your artifacts from your one environment to another environment internally or maybe some externally, but right now the things are like you might be having like distributed global teams sitting across globe actually. So how do we trust that your software bundle is not compromised? So you need to make sure that you send those software binaries securely as well. So trust is also a matter. And then on the final thing is like, how do you make this whole process as simple as possible? Because you don't want to like develop something and then which will have like a very critical process to kind of like take it to the next stage, which is very complex. That's not the goal you want. You want a more simple process takes into that multiple stages in your environment, and then put it in your production as quickly as possible. So these are all the different factors which goes into your flexible distribution mechanism. Once you have this one, you can see that some of the things you can check in the checkboxes, like the pipeline automation. Because from your SDLC lifecycle process, your entire pipeline, you might want it to automate it. You don't want some of the manual process in the middle. So you wanted to automate it, fully automate that process so that you can take the binary from one end to the other end. And the security and the compliance. We are in the era of compliance is like critical. And so for every applications that we are developing, we should keep that compliance and security in mind before we start the first line of code. So that also gets checked if you have like flexible distribution mechanism. And as an enterprise organizations, everybody wants us a central management of DevSecOps processes, because we don't want like an isolated processes and then last is visibility. So we wanted to bring everything into one single pane of glass, viewed from one single place, so that you can see like what goes in your entire pipeline process for all your application in every stages of your environment. Okay, so without further delay, we'll just go into that the next slide. So who is consuming the distributed software? So if you look at that, there are three different ways we can classify that. The one is your internal distributions, the customers' own developers. So you could be having like a two-pizza team, or maybe like 200,000 people across your globe. So you might be having like different teams sitting in the same place, or different teams sitting in the different places. So those are all like internal distributions. So you need to take the software from one end to the other end. The second one is the external distribution. It could be your customers. The third one is like where you take your software and then closer to your compute machines and then run it from there. So let's dive deep into that individual ones. So if you look at that internal distributions, so software right now, the artifacts are getting developed in not only in one place, as in multiple places. So you have teams sitting across different parts of the globe. The things happening in a CI process sitting in somewhere in US has to be delivered to a different team in UU, or maybe in APAC for the next stage of your applications. It could be a collaborative development, or it could be some like in a handoff from one stage of your application to the second stage. So your remote offices could be in a different locations. And getting past that restricted networks, because across globally, you don't want to give everybody the same access to talk to the environment and then get those artifacts. So maybe like you wanted to have a more restricted environment where that the development is happening, but maybe like in a different environment, in a different place, you might be having like in a different set of network restrictions. So you wanted to hand over that binaries to there and then continue that SDLC life journey from there. And then separation of duties also come into the picture. Like we discussed, like development might be happening in EU and the testing might be happening in US, or vice versa. So you kind of like hand over the artifacts once that first part is complete, and then you move it to that second part. So those are all the things which we think about, like internally how you distribute your software. Think about that external distribution. This could be in you could be in a company developing some kind of plugins or SDKs or the drivers, or maybe like in a base images or toolkits maybe. So that could be used by a developer community. So you could be publishing them in an Artifactory in such a way that, okay, somebody can go and then download it and start using it. So that could be one use case you can think of it. The second use case could be like your direct customers. Your direct customers expecting the binary from you, and then you might want to authenticate them. You don't want to give them the full access to your where all your binaries are there. So you wanted to kind of like take them to your place where they can access to their specific set of specific version of binary for a period of time, and then authenticate them to download that, or let them download that binaries from that point actually. So you have an external distribution use case as well. In some of the complex supply chains, you could have like one organization build something and then it pass on to a different organization, do the second set of requirements, and then continue the journey. So you might want to have like different repositories. I mean, like the binary repositories in one location to be transferred to a binary repository in another location and carry that SDLC lifecycle. So you can talk about multiple use cases in external distributions as well. So we'll keep it kind of like a simple, like these are the simple use cases where you can solve in the external distributions. Okay, And the next one, we're talking about that like in a runtime or the infrastructure edge distributions. What does it mean? So let's assume that you have an on-prem data center, you have your compute machines running over there, and then you have the computes happening in the cloud as well. It could be an AWS, GCP, or Azure, or whatever may be the cloud vendor. So your compute needs to have those binaries close by, because you might be having a Kubernetes cluster deployment for additional provisioning of these servers when you're kind of like having through a busy period. So you need those applications to be extracted from Artifactory and then deployed there and then spin up that provision those environment. So the closer would be needed if you wanted to have that. Same thing. It could be in a non-cluster environment. Your production nodes might be sitting in an on-prem, or it could be on the cloud. Wherever that one is, you wanted to take that binary closer to the possible, because you don't want to have that additional time it needs to take from the production instance. If they wanted to provision a new instance, they need to wait for like an X number of seconds to get that binary from a far off location and then start building those servers with that applications. So you wanted to keep those binaries as closer to the possible to this compute machines, wherever it could be. It could be an on-prem, it could be in cloud, and then spin it from there. So that could be another set of use cases you can think about in your runtime and then infrastructure. And yeah, gone are those days like we need to rely on like non-IoT devices. So everywhere it's Internet of Things right now. So devices are common across globe. So every household, we have several IoT devices we have in place right now. So you wanted to have your binaries to be deployed, managed, and then distributed into your field devices. So you need to have some set of mechanism for you to connect from your development to all the way to the implementation of that binaries inside IoT devices and manage them across. So that's a different use case you can think about in the distribution side as well. So far, we have learned a lot of distribution types like internal, external, and then runtime infrastructure. Let's get into more details now. So how we are solving the problem. So if you look at that, this is our JFrog software supply chain platform. You can see that Artifactory, which is our which is our main component, which is sitting in the middle. We do support the 32 different package types. Multiple use cases we can solve. We can resolve your dependencies by going to a third-party registries like Docker Hub, Maven Central, or any other NPM registries, pipeline registries, and bring those OSS packages and then cache it in Artifactory and then resolve your dependencies and then complete your build processes. Once your build gets pushed into Artifactory, we have your binaries combined with your first-party binaries along with the third-party binaries, and then we can create these packages and then we can distribute it to any of your on-prem data centers or public cloud platforms. Wherever your computes are happening, we can use it, our distribution services to take it there. A couple other components we built around it because security plays a huge role in these days nowadays. So that's where, like, and you can say X-ray, which is our software composition analysis tool, advanced security, the curation and catalog. These are all the several security features we have added lately around Artifactory, and any kind of artifacts you are bringing in. We wanted to make sure that it's free from any kind of security vulnerabilities or license compliance issues or operational efficiencies. Make sure that your software binary is fully secure before you take it to your internal distribution or external distribution or IoT devices. So that's where we put a huge security blanket on top of it, Artifactory. And if you look at here, the JFrog Connect, which is also part of our platform, like we discussed, distribution takes the binary from Artifactory, scans it by X-ray, making sure that it's free from vulnerabilities, and use the distribution service to connect to that JFrog Connect, and then JFrog Connect manages these IoT devices in your field. So you can provision these IoT devices and then attach to that JFrog Connect. You can create pipelines for your software distribution from Artifactory or maybe any other outside world, and then connect all your applications deployed in your IoT devices and monitor those devices, just not only for the applications exceptions, anything for like in a device level, like in a CPU, RAM, and all those things. Like we can take a look at that when we get into that demo side of it. So everything can be managed part of this process itself inside the JFrog Connect. So that's how our platform works. Through distributions, we connect every dot from far left to all the dots in the far right, which includes all your on-prem and then cloud platforms or any kind of like an IoT devices. The distribution edge nodes is the one which I'm going to talk about now. This is like a lean version of Artifactory. So what does it mean, the lean version of Artifactory? You cannot upload anything into edge nodes. There's one exception to that, but I would say that 99% of the times we do not allow any kind of like an uploads into edge nodes. The only way you can bring that artifacts from Artifactory to edge nodes is like in a distribution services through bundles. So when you bring that bundles and then have those bundles delivered to these distributed edges, and have these distributed edges is the access point for your internal and external customers to extract those bundles actually. There's one other use case. We are going to get into that. So right now, so that's kind of like the overview of our supply chain platform. So we'll get into that detail into the minute here. So what happens today? So if you look at that, a lot of organizations have different set of developers with the full stack development going on. Different package types are getting used, different processes are getting followed, different package managers are getting used, different build tools are in place. There are so many tools are in every organization. There is a defragmentation happening there. So if you look at that, the processes, it's inconsistent. Even within the organization, there could be several business units, several application teams follows a different processes. What works for them, they just go and adopt it. I'm not saying that it is incorrect, but from a senior management perspective, if you just look at that overall view, there are like an isolated processes, and then it is very hard to see like which one is effective and what kind of impact each application team is causing in the another business unit or other processes. So when you have like an inconsistent processes, what happens is like your software supply chain is untrusted at that point, because nobody is 100% sure like, exactly how the whole thing works. It's fragmented, and then if you look at that, it's very fragile, and then somebody might have updated some kind of configurations in a testing environment which never get carried into in production environment. So, or there is no system of record goes back and then say that, okay, they changed it in QA only, or some kind of adjustments happened in something in the production only, and then it never carried into that development environment for the future releases. So something happened with that particular release, never carried back into your source code systems. So all those things could happen if you do have like an inconsistent processes. So that's what it's happening most of the places we have seen. So this is where we need to take this as a goal. Like, how do we kind of like make sure that our releases are immutable? The more you kind of like make the release immutable early in your SDLC lifecycle, which makes like your process not touched by anybody in the middle, because the once that release bundle has been immutable, nobody can touch it. You need to come back to your left side and then just rebuild that whole the release bundle again, and then you send it across so that it gets consistency in any of your environment. It could be a dev, QA, pre-prod, prod, whatever that the different stages of your environment you have, you can treat that. And then the visibility of the life cycle. Because visibility is important, because if without that, if one person can change something or one team changes something, the other team is unaware of the changes, that's where the problem happens actually. So that's where like we need to ensure that the visibility is also important. And the third is the governance. Everything has to be as a system of record. We need to have that changes in place, and then it gets approved so that it follows that standard practice across business units, across the organizations. So that makes the final goal of that software supply chain management. So if you do have these many things lined up and then execute that in the proper way, then your SDLC lifecycle, you can see that it gets processed successfully, all your releases goes into the production stages, and then it works for the business actually. So how JFrog is coming and helping in this place actually. So if you look at here, we create environments. So if you look at our platform, we do support dev and prod by default, and then you can go ahead and create a number of maximum of 9 we have seen. So that's what we are currently support inside our platform actually. So you can create a dev, and then in between, like, and you can have like a QA, pre-prod, staging, and then prod. So that's one kind of like a global environments you can create. The second, we also allow the people to create is like in a JFrog projects. I'm pretty much sure that most of us heard about the JFrog projects. You can create a separate isolated environment for a JFrog project within the platform. Let's assume that the project has been spun up for an Maven applications with the 5 different developers, and then they can go ahead and set it up. And then a project lead can create repositories, create pipelines, create some kind of allocation of storage, and then they can onboard, offboard users, and then they can create some provisioning, some permission targets for some of the users. So one could be a couple of people could be a developers, one could be in a testing admin. So they might not be able to modify the contents, but at least they can read and then do execution of the test cases. So those kind of things goes into the environment. So once you have that environment ready, so that's where like you can continue to build. And the second thing we think about is like, when you go from one staging environment to another staging environments, let's assume that you build your product and then move it to your dev. And then from there, you wanted to take it to the next stage in your environment. That could be a QA. So you need some kind of evidence from QA to pre-prod. You wanted to have some kind of, let's assume that you have in Selenium test cases sitting in a different framework where you wanted to take those binaries, execute those test cases, and then certify those use cases saying that, okay, these are all good. And then once the evidence comes back and saying that, okay, this is good, and then I wanted to move it to the next stage in my SDLC lifecycle, you can take it from QA to pre-prod, and then maybe some kind of performance testing happening at that time. So different levels of testing can happen in different environments. So you can take that evidence between different environments, and then once the evidence is complete, then you can continue to promote it. And the policies, we are talking about security, as we discussed in our platform slide. Security is part of our life cycle. You can see that Artifactory is surrounded by X-ray, advanced security, curation, and catalog. So you can implement any kind of security policies for your vulnerabilities management, and then making sure that your release bundle is fully secure. And once you have your policies or security team policies has been established, and then make sure that we're not putting any kind of malicious package in it, or we're not putting any critical or high alerts there, sorry, critical or high vulnerabilities there. Make sure those kind of things are taken care. Then your release bundle is ready to be distributed to the different stages. So that's where we think that these building blocks will help that release bundles to be more solid as possible, and then take it to the production so that it's free from vulnerabilities. It followed all the practices, those kind of things. And then once you have your release bundle released to the production, then the management of your SDLC lifecycle from dev to production is very easy. So let me quickly jump into that different things. Yeah. So this is what we talked about, the release bundle. So it's an immutable and a secured SBOM that represents a release. So as we discussed, a release bundle has to be started as early as possible. If you've been following JFrog for several years, you can see that we have rolled out release bundle version 2 lately. There is a release bundle version 1 we have rolled out a couple of years back. So what's the difference between that? So if you look at here, release bundle version 1, what we rolled out a couple of years back, we suggested that you do a build promotion from dev and then to QA, and then you take it to the production repository in our cycle. And then if you're ready to distribute that release bundle to your edge node where your consumers can be consumed, so you can create a release bundle version 1 and then take it there. Release bundle V2, what we released lately, actually in the last 6 months. So what we are suggesting is like, make sure that when you promote it to that dev build inside your dev repository, from that point itself, like, go ahead and create these release bundles, because it is signed immutable, so that you lock that bundle very early in your cycle itself, and then you promote the release bundle instead of promoting the builds. So once you have your release bundle getting created early in your life cycle, and then it's immutable, then you promote it to the QA, and then from QA to pre-prod to production. We talked about the environments, again, like global and project level environments, repositories, the permissions. Yeah, we touched on this one. And then the evidence, we talked about it. There could be a test framework that extract the binary, test it, certify it, saying that, okay, this is good to go. That good metadata gets added part of your artifact. And then that's an evidence which will take you to the next one. And then the promotion we talked about from one environment to other environment, you can, instead of promoting the build, promoting the release bundle is our suggestion for you at this moment. And this is where it looks like. So if you look at it here, you're sitting here and then develop the code, checked in with your any kind of Git repository, and there is a build tool, could be a Jenkins or Bitbucket. It could be any kind of Azure pipelines or any other build processes, picks up those committed changes, and then asking Artifactory to resolve those dependencies. Once that gets resolved, you push the contents into that dev repositories. So you can see that if it is a Docker application, so you can see that Docker local. If it is a Maven application, you can go to like a dev Maven local. If you're following our best practices, you can see that it's based on the package type. You get into that different repositories. So that's where you have it. And this is where we expect you to create a release saying that, okay, go ahead and create a release bundle from these packages. Once this release bundle is created, then the evidence will take you to that saying that, okay, I have this evidence right now saying that, okay, I'm ready to go to the QA and then prod. So you take that bundles from one environment to other environment. Of course, you can have your X-rays attached to these instances wherever you wanted to in dev or QA, and then make sure that you scan those release bundles, and then making sure that your security vulnerabilities are getting back to the developers to address it, and then create the second set of bundles. So once you identify that, okay, this particular bundle have these many vulnerabilities, it's not applicable, you fail the promotion process here itself, and then take it back there to that the application team, and then repackage them, fix those through the remediation steps what we provide in our X-ray, and then take it, attack the bundle, and then retest it again, making sure that before it gets out of it, it's free from any kind of security vulnerabilities actually. So that's where it goes. And once it's ready, once it's been inside the production, then you can see that our distribution can take you to multiple ways actually. You can think about a distribution edge node sitting in Frankfurt and New York, and then distribution can be dropped there. This could be an IoT device, and I would JFrog Connect can connect it and then drop into your IoT field devices. So that's kind of like a release trail we have been talking about. Okay. So let's talk about the distribution to an edge node actually. So if you look at here, the screen, what I have, this is the release bundle version 2. I can create a release bundle from 2 different resources. I can go behind a build and create a release bundle and from the build, or I can go and pick up an existing release bundle and create a new release bundle with that. I can combine multiple release bundles, and then I can build in end release bundle actually. And you can see that I can choose the destinations, I can choose the versions, and then I can choose the bundles, and then I can go ahead and then deploy it in wherever I wanted to deploy it. Again, we will get into a demo. This is a screenshot for you to visualize it for right now. The distribution edge nodes. This is the one which we talked about in our platform screen for right hand. That's like in a read-only security distribution to remote locations. So this is where we talked about a couple of use cases. You can take your release bundles and drop it into your edge nodes. From there, your customers, internal or externals, either authenticated, they can come and then extract as binaries for a period of time, whatever the time you have set for them to come and grab it, they can take it. The second one is like in a smart remote repositories, where you can create a remote repository, and instead of you having that remote repository pointing to a third-party proxy cache, I'm pretty much sure that a lot of us in this call who have experienced with the Artifactory in the past, you can create a remote repository and then have that third-party binaries, whether it could be a Docker Hub or Maven Central, and then Artifactory brings that third-party binaries from that third-party registries and then cached in that remote repository. So the smart remote repository is slightly different. Instead of going the call to that third-party registries, you are connecting back to an Artifactory actually. It could be in a self-hosted artifactory, or it could be a SaaS artifactory, but the smart remote repository connect to an artifactory. So how that's going to help you? Let's assume that you have a client process which is talking to your smart remote repository. So the smart remote repository as the mothership, which is the artifact in this case, and then asking for those dependency resolvement, and then it gets the packages from the mothership to the smart remote repository, which is sitting inside that distribution edge node, and then bring the packages there. And as we spoke, direct upload of software is not possible. We don't allow that to happen. And you can see that the number of release bundles, number of the bill of materials, software bill of materials is key component right now. If you are working with any federal project, you are obligated to provide a software bill of material. So we do support that. We provide every granular component which goes inside your bundle, and then make it available for you to share with any of your customers in 2 different formats actually. Okay, so this is built for scale. So hundreds and hundreds of organizations are leveraging this distribution edges for software distribution in our organization. Okay, let's talk about distribution patterns. The one thing we wanted to understand that before we get into the different types of distributions, in the earlier days, we also supported replication as one way of getting the binary from one end to the other. So what is replications? So replication is like you have your binary in one of your local repository. Let's assume that the artifactory is in New York, and then you wanted to take that binary to a different artifactory which is sitting in London. So you can have your push replication gets that up and running. It could be in a schedule based, or it could be an event based. So once that New York artifactory have that binary uploaded to the local artifactory, based on the type you have selected, if it's an event based, it immediately replicate into that artifactory in London. Or if it is in a schedule based replication you have set, then it could go and then trigger that event when that time meets that criteria. Then it gets replicated into that London artifactory. So those are like in some push and pull applicable applications. When I get into the demo, I'll show you. Those are like in the early days we have suggested to follow it. You can still follow that. So a lot of organizations still use it, but some higher level of subscriptions might be needed to have some very complex replication strategies. We can talk about that later. You need some higher level of subscription for that. So without further delay, let's get into the distribution patterns here. So the uniform distribution, if you look at here, your mother instance could be in somewhere, maybe like an on-prem data center, or it could be in JFrog managed SaaS instances. So once you have that mothership up and running, your CI process might be connected to that. But when you think about like where you take that CD processor, so you might be having the computing machines somewhere in different parts of the globe. Your application needs to be deployed in Japan, or maybe in Singapore or somewhere. So you might want to have an edge node closer to that location, Singapore or Japan, and then have that binary distributed from your mothership to the edge node in Singapore and Japan, and then from there it needs to be served. So a couple other options we have, like in hybrid distributions, download center, and content delivery, and the air gap distribution. So let's kind of like a deep one at a time. So this is the one we talked about it. So provision the software in private and public clouds, global distribution, it can span multiple clouds. So it's not necessary that your SaaS instance is in JFrog managed one in Azure. It doesn't mean that your edge nodes need to be in the Azure itself. Either it could be an on-prem, or it could be hosted by JFrog in a different cloud provider. It could be AWS at this case, maybe like a GCP at this case. And it overcome high latency because you already took the binary closer to where that compute is happening. So from there, your compute machines can extract that binary from that edge node, which is closer to it's part of the same region. The latency is very low. So that's where we suggest, and then we call it as like uniform distribution and hybrid distribution. So this is another point. There are some multiple use cases it solves. So let's assume that you have 2 different things. Either you might be having an artifactory in your on-prem data center, and then you wanted to have your edge nodes may be hosted by JFrog. So JFrog, you might not have a visibility or maybe some kind of restrictions for you to host those edge nodes in multiple parts of the globe. JFrog can manage that edge nodes in different cloud regions from different cloud vendors and then support your customers. So so customers can come and extract that binaries from the JFrog managed SaaS edge nodes, but you still hold your mothership, which is your Artifactory. It could be on your on-prem, or it could be on somewhere in the cloud. That's one use cases we solve. And then we also solve the other way around. You can let JFrog manage the mothership. So your Artifactory is managed by JFrog, all your developments happening. But at the same time, you have some kind of artifact reservement need to happen in your on-prem data center. So you can stand up in a self-hosted edge node in your on-prem data center, or maybe in somewhere in your cloud space, and then extract that binaries from mothership, which is a JFrog managed SaaS instance, and then cache it in your edge node, and then use it multiple times to avoid some kind of transfer cost. Some organizations do that practice as well, like get those binaries and then place it there. But your main CI/CD processes relies on that the SaaS mothership, which is managed by JFrog at this point. So either way you can manage, either you can have like a SaaS Artifactory self-hosted edges, or vice versa. That's also possible. And the download centers, and you can see here is like you can let that development happening in your sorry, distributed from one second, let me clarify this one. Yeah, again, this is the same thing. Like there are multiple ways you can let the customers to come and get that binaries from edge nodes. If you are self-hosted edge nodes, you need to have like one customers per edge nodes. But if you are letting that JFrog manage that edge nodes, multiple customers can come and then get that binary from the SaaS managed edge nodes actually. And the dynamic distributions. So let's assume that you do not have a way to deliver some of the contents, and then you don't want any kind of like long-term relationship with your customers, not provisioning them some authentication layer for them. So this is a one-time thing that you wanted to create this bundle on the fly, sign it, and then securely send that particular URL to that specific group of people in your customer list. Then you can create them through our REST APIs and then have them download it. So you can set those expiration times part of on the time when you're creating these dynamic distributions, and let the customers download it, whatever that expiration time you have set. Once that one is passed, the URL will be invalid. So that is also be part of this dynamic distribution. And the final one you can think of is like an CDN. Content distribution network. So if you look at here how the whole thing works, the customers or the users submits a download request to Artifactory. So if we can see that instead of Artifactory provides that particular binary back to the users, what we are delivering it here is like in a redirect URL. Where we say that, okay, go ahead and then send that redirect URL, which is pointed to the nearest CDN pub. And then from there, you get that binary. So that's one other way that you can have that. I'm pretty much sure that a lot of organizations have limited capability to deliver the content to the customers, because now the customers are not region-based. It's all global based for every organization. So you might not have that bandwidth to go ahead and then set up these edge nodes in multiple parts of the globes. So you can use AWS CloudFront to have this CDN setup and let Artifactory manages those binaries through CDN and then provide that binaries to your customer base. That is part of this content distribution network as well. Okay. And finally, some of the places we wanted to support air gap distribution flow also. What if you're one of your edge node is sitting inside an air gap place that where you cannot kind of having the connectivity from Artifactory to edge node can happen. So this is where we suggest like you can go ahead and create a release bundle from Artifactory and then zip it and then download that bundle and then put it in an external device such as like a USB flash drive, and then take that flash drive back to the edge nodes and then upload the contents back into that edge node actually. So that's the way that we normally suggest if you're having like an air gap use case. you can have the bundles distributed from one Artifactory into multiple edge nodes through these USB types. Okay, that's the like an air gap distribution. Okay, so without further delay, let me go and then showcase you like how the whole release bundle V2 works. So if you look at here, this is our platform. I already logged in, and then you can see here, I just want to quickly show some of the things here. The topology, which is very, very important. And you can see I have a couple of instances. So I have a Solidge instance, Swamp of 2023. There are multiple instances of JFrog Artifactory here. And then I have some of the edge nodes. You can see that the edge node is in Azure. And then there is another instance here, Solidge edge node in some EU locations, and then a couple other locations here. So all these different Artifactories and the edge nodes can be part of the same platform monitored by one single place. That's the beauty of it. So you can create pairing tokens from different Artifactory and Artifactory edge nodes, and then have those pairing tokens attached to this main mission control for this main JPD. And then automatically there is a sync between like, okay, I can visibly see that there are multiple ways you can sync it. Like, if you want to sync the repositories, there is a federated repository, you can sync between different things, or you can have your security entities like the users, the groups, and then access tokens. If you wanted to sync it, you can sync them through an access federations. So I'm going to quickly show some of the things here. And if you look at here, so I'm going to show a local repository. And I'm pretty much sure that most of us are familiar with this basic step, like creating this local repository here. So I'm going to call it as DevNext Maven. And then a couple other things you can go ahead and say that, okay, this is my dev repository. I'm going to create a dev. And then this is where you set up what do you want if you wanted to replicate the contents from this particular repository to your repository in your far off locations. So I can go ahead and create an let me move this guy out. I can go ahead and create a replication. All I need to provide is provide the URL with that repository name. So let's assume that I'm going to call it as https://londonartifactory.com and then /artifactory, and then my repository could be London maven local, and then provide these credentials. And then I have some of the options if you when you have that sync going from this particular instance to that London Artifactory, should the properties should be synced, should audio statistics should be synced. If I delete something in this one, should I delete it in the far off location also? So all those information goes here. And then I can set it up. I can go and then make it as an event based, and then I can also make it as a schedule based. Schedule based is by default because some of the times the event based could be out of sync. The schedule will catch all those buckets actually. So you could do that for your remote repository, for your pull replications as well. So those are all different replication types. You can go ahead. We don't need to get into that replication a lot. So let's quickly talk about the environments here. So this is what I was explaining to you. I can go ahead and create a maximum of 9 different environments. So we have a dev, test, staging, QA, prod, alpha already created. So we can use one of the things if you want to go ahead and create a new one here from environment as well. And once you have your project up and running, so there is a way to go and then set up those projects. Let's assume that there is a project already for you. And then now you can see that there is a new project level environment, because not all organizations, application teams follow the same structure. So it's not like in a dev, test, QA is common across all your teams in your organization. So some of the projects could be they go from a dev to pre-prod and prod. They may be the dev to Q and QA to prod. So that could be one or two, and then they might be directly going into the prod, or there may be some post-prod environment also there. So you can create your custom environments just for your specific projects and then go from there. So that's how it works. And let's quickly move on here. Yeah, a couple of the things I wanted to show here. Access federation. So if you look at here, I can go ahead and then create those. Let me create an access token first. So let's go ahead. So this is where, let's assume that I'm in a different artifact, not in this one. I can go ahead and create a pairing token and then say that mission controls. So what this will is like, now this will create a token and then I copy it and then I come back and then set it up here. So let's assume that I did this exercise in a different artifact instance. And then I come back here and then I can go ahead and then attach it here. Go back to So I can fill all these details. And then once I provide that platform URL, then it's going to go and ask for me that like, okay, provide that pairing token you wanted to attach it to it. So once you have that one going, then this mission control can see that particular artifact instance also part of this mission control. Then you can make any kind of connectivity saying that, okay, if I wanted to move the release bundle from this location to the other edge node or a secondary instance, I can do that as well. Okay, and federated repository is the another one we wanted to talk about. Let's assume that you have concurrent development happening in your US and EU repository, EU locations, and then you can create a local repository and then convert them into a federated repository. Once you have your federated repositories up and running, the changes happening in one location is immediately reflected in the other locations, and then vice versa. Also, it's a bi-direction mirror. So we optimize that entire pipeline process. So make sure that your concurrent development goes as smooth as possible. That is also part of the federated repositories. And okay, so I think like now we are good in this portion. So if you look at our exercise on the, if you go to that JFrog DevNext workshop, and then 0.3 distribution, 0.3 is our class today. And then you can see that there is a lab distribution here. And then I have detailed out the different steps here. You can follow that if you wanted to automate that entire process outside of UI. So I'm going to kind of like quickly jump in between like the UI and this one. The first and the foremost thing is like setting up that CLI environment. Our command line interface is very effective. I would recommend you to use the command line interfaces to integrate any of your pipeline processes because we've been investing a lot in our CLI to fully automate the process. Again, everything is REST API based calls under the hood, and then what you see in UI have the same capability in CLI as well as REST APIs. But if you're fully automating the process, yeah, definitely you wanted to take CLI as a serious one. So the first and foremost thing is like, how do we kind of, let me show here something here. I'm in my command terminal. So if you look at here, I have several servers I have configured here. The first and foremost is like, once you downloaded the CLI, you need to add that particular server. So you might be having a trial instance right now. So go ahead and then whatever the way you wanted to call that particular URL as a server. So I'm just going to call it as a trial. And this is where you type your, so let's assume that ABC dot DevNext JFrog.io. That's your instance. Go ahead and set it up, and then multiple ways you can go ahead and this one, and then this could be a username, and you might be having a password. I'm just going to say that, and no. And once you have this one, right now I haven't provided the proper credentials, but once you set it up, that particular server ID will be your default if you're having only one. If you have multiple ones, then you can configure that which one is your default one. So that's the step we have done it here. And then you can see that I'm going to say that this is my server ID. So instead of trial, you call it as DevNext, then you can say that, okay, I'm going to point all my commands to this particular JFrog artifact instance. So that's where like we go and say that JFrog use DevText. So I already cloned this project, and then I already have it in my local. It's still sitting inside my IDE. So if you look at here, I downloaded the contents, and then this is a very simple Maven application. So you can see here it's a multi-module, couple of modules inside, and then this is my POM XML. And you can see some of the contents are here. It's extracting some Spring Framework libraries here. And then, yep, pretty straightforward. And then if we look back here, so I'm going to go and start executing this one. So let's see what we have here for the Maven configuration. So in the server ID resolve, I'm calling it as okay, that's the, so I should have said give me 1 second. That's the typo here. You should have said not DevNext here. Let me update it here. So I have a couple of my repositories. I have payment Maven dev local and payment Maven remote, and then both are embedded inside that payment Maven dev virtual actually. So all these were available, and this is my DevNext is my server ID deploy, and I'm using DevNext to resolve as well. So you can see that that's my Maven command. So I'm going to kind of successfully configure that one. So once I configure it, then I'm going to execute that. So whatever the one which we wanted to say. So I'm going to say build number 30, and then payment Maven, Maven 1, whatever you want to call it. So we can go ahead and install it. Oh, I'm not in that directory. Okay, my build is getting executed. Okay, you can see that my build is complete, and then I have successfully developed the 7 artifacts. And then if you look at here, other commands here, this is to collect the environment variables. And this is you collect your VCS details. And then once you have collecting these things, and then you can publish that inside Artifactory. So as you recall, we said that this is my connectivity from my local desktop to my DevNext, or whatever that instance name you have configured. So once I promote that build, then that execution happens and then goes inside one. So let's kind of go ahead and collect that information. So this one is get information. Whatever the bill name and the bill number you are coming up still fine. Okay, we added that, and then let's go ahead and then publish that. So I successfully built it, and then I successfully pushed my contents in this one. So if you look at that other steps inside this one, you can set the properties, you can move it to and create in a release bundle. You can see every command is available for you to play around, and then you can sign the release bundle, and then you can see that the release bundle distribution happening actually. Here, you need to understand that you need to have the second Artifactory instance, or maybe an edge node is needed at this point, because when you are ready with your release bundle to be moved in a different instance, when you are distributing it, you need a second instance. So you can talk to our support and then get something for an edge node or Artifactory second instance, and then get the connectivity going. So I'm going to kind of go back to my UI side and then show the remaining step just to make sure that we are covering in every angle. So let's go back here, our factory, and the build here. So you can see this is the build we promoted, and then it is sitting here, and that's the last timestamp. So you can see here as the one. And you can see there there are multiple different builds happen, and this is part of that 30th build we also pushed. So let's kind of quickly go inside, and then you can see that the contents were there. My module, my number of artifacts were 7, so that's where they were there. And then my environment details. If I have turned on X-ray to scan this build, my X-ray result should be here. Currently, I haven't scanned it, so that's why I don't see those differences. This one, I can go and then compare any kind of if I have a previous build, I can go ahead and compare it. Since this is the first time we built it, we don't have that comparison there. And you can go and then extract the build info JSON. If you wanted to find out that environment variables when we collected it, all those things were available here, where those dependencies, what kind of dependencies we extracted it, in case if we need to reprocess this build process again, with this build info JSON, you should be able to finally do it actually. And the artifacts should be sitting inside my, because if you recall, we said in the payment Maven virtual, and then there's one local and then one remote repository there. And you can see that my dev local should have all my instance there, artifacts there. So that's a timestamp. You can see that we just deployed it, and then it should be available for you to use it. So now that the first step is complete, if you recall the picture, what we have, promote the build and then sitting inside the dev local. So from there, you can take that the release bundle picture and how do we promote that as a bundles. So that's where you come here, and then you can see that the existing bundles here. From here, you can see that I wanted to create a release bundle from 2 different angles, either from the existing build or from the release bundles. There is another way you can go ahead and create it as well. If you go from here to a build, then you need to type all the build information, the build names, and the easiest way is go to the build itself, and then from there you can kind of pick it from there and run it. So let's assume that we are picking this one. You can see that the create release bundle pop up here. So let's go ahead and fire this build here. So it says that I can go ahead and then use an existing name, or I can go ahead and create a different name. Let's say that, okay, we are going to use the existing name. And then I'm going to call this one as 40.0.0. So that's the release bundle version I'm going to say. And the signing key is very important. Remember, we talked about how do we secure that bundles when they move from one environment to other environment. There are options inside Artifactory administration by page where you can create GPGs keys, both the public and private, and then upload them. And then it should pop up as an entity here, and then use it for your the build signing key. The other way also, you can house the keys in HashiCorp Vault, and then you can extract that through HashiCorp Vault into Artifactory and use those keys to sign the bundles as well. So let's assume that you have completed those steps. When we share that information through an email, I will provide some links where you can go ahead and create the GPG keys and upload them to Artifactory. So let's assume that I have done that step, and then I picked up this as the key. And then once I say next, you can see that all my contents are getting here. And I do have some of the contents here saying that, hey, this is my the 7 files which we already compiled. And then if you see here, and I can go ahead and create that release bundle at this point. Either I can include in a build dependencies. If the build dependencies are from local, it's part of it, and then you can create it and then move it across into different environments. So let's go ahead and then create that. So now you can see that we are in the release bundles page, and then you can see that's on the top because that's the lately added. And let's go ahead and open that guy. And you can see that it has been successfully created. So let's see what are the different options here. So the first and foremost options you get is promote it to in a different staging environment. Or if you wanted to distribute from dev to all the way to any of the edges, that's also possible. Or if you wanted to export that release bundle and then ship it into some kind of USB drive for your Airflow distributions, you can take it there as well. Or if you wanted to permanently delete this from release bundle from this mothership, you can do that. Or if you wanted to remote delete it, remote delete is like now after you promote that after you distribute that bundle to a far off edge node on Artifactory, you wanted to remove those contents from those far off locations, you can do that. And then you can do that activity tracking also. So let's go ahead and then first execute the promote. So this is where it's going to say that, okay, this is the bundle I'm picking it up. This is the key I'm going to use. Now tell us like, what is the target environment you want us to move this release bundle. So let's assume that from dev, we are going to QA. And then what it's going to ask is like, it's going to pull any kind of repositories which are tied to that QA environment. You remember like when we created the project, we create dev repositories, QA repositories, pre-prod, prod repositories, and all tied to different environments and all environments back to tied to that specific projects. So I can go ahead and say that, okay, that's not my project. That's not my project. This is my payment maven QA local is my repository. So you can pick and choose that. Since I haven't attached any project here, it didn't pick up that specific repository for that project. Had I tagged all that projects associated with that repositories, then it's going to say that, hey, you are in payment maven dev local. For your projects, the only way you can go and then drop it there is like in a payment maven QA local. So that entire pipeline has been already streamlined, part of the project's features sets itself. So now I go ahead and then select it manually saying that, hey, this is the payment QA local I wanted to go. And then I go ahead and promote it. So now you can see that my contents from my dev to move to the QA local sites. Everything is assigned and sent. So now I can go from here, I can go ahead and delete it, or I can view the contents. All those things are up. And so this is where your content is going to be saying that, okay, where they are inside your path. So you can go ahead and then see that, okay, these are all SHA keys. You can go ahead and see if you wanted to verify those contents in those particular repositories. You can see what are the different the build properties which we are carrying forward from your build process. You can verify that as well. And if you wanted to see the specs, you can see here, all those informations are available. So let's go back to this 40th version again. And then let's now, since we already, let's assume that at this point, you have already pulled this binary, sent through some automation or manual test cases. Evidence has come back saying that, okay, this is ready to go to QA. The QA is complete now. Now let's assume that you have another process which validates saying that, okay, this is ready to go to that production. So let's kind of like go back here. So now I'm moving that contents to a production repository. So now I'm going to find my payment maven prod local and promote it. So now if you look back that slide we had, we promoted all the way up to here. Let's go and pull that guy. So now you can see we built the process, we moved to the dev maven local, and then we had that evidence from my external system, and then we promoted to QA, and then we got the second evidence from other process, and then we said that, okay, now ready to move to the prod, and then now our contents are inside the prod maven local actually. Now it's ready to for the release. Let's assume that we have secured our software by scanning the X-ray for those release bundle, and then it came back and said that, okay, everything is good. Now you can go ahead and then use our distribution services to promote to the far off edge nodes. So now I can go back there. Now instead of promote, I'm going to go to the next one, the distribute. So this is where we need to make sure that where we are heading into. So all those the edges, the secondary JPDs where I showed that the pairing token can be added part of the registered JPDs inside the mission controls. That's going to get listed here. So now I'm going to set that, okay, out of these two, I'm going to set this guy as my destinations because this is inside my EU locations, which is closer to my customer base where they need this software. And then I can go ahead and say that, hey, if it is missing those repositories, because when you see this, the release bundles goes there, the contents goes inside the repositories. The release bundle is then like a wrapper around those contents. So I need those repositories to be created in Edge nodes, or maybe like, and I can go ahead and say like, if it is missing, go ahead and auto create that one. Then if I need to have an additional setting, let's assume that there are three different things. So here I call it as like a payment, Maven, dev local, QA local, or prod local. But when it goes to the destination side, I wanted to have it something different. Maybe something instead of payment, I wanted to call something. I can go ahead and then change those repositories. Or you can see that the original repository with the new repository, I can go ahead and change that. In case like, and if I wanted to change the folder, it was showing like an initially multi-1, multi-2, and so if you wanted to have in a different folder structures, because it is more closer to that customer environment where I want to have a different folder path and then folder names, I can go ahead and set that as well. Or I can go ahead and then rename the folder from my older to a newer folder names. I can go ahead and use that one. So any kind of additional setting is possible as well. Let's assume that we are not adding any complexity there. So we are saying that, okay, payment RB 40th version should go to the Solinch Edge SaaS. That's our requirement. So it shows the status is pending. It might take like in a couple of seconds to complete it. Let's give one more second. Yep. So now you can see that it got distributed there. So let's go into that. I can go from here. You can see that it started, it's finished, and it took less than 5 seconds. Think about you have an environment sitting in London, and then you wanted to promote these binaries from one location to other location through an FTP process, some kind of outside process. Is very complicated. It's not easy to maintain those the defragmented processes we already talked about. Now it's part of the platform. I can quickly share my binaries from one location to other locations, which is closer to the customer base. Even my computes are happening in EU, so they can pull the software from there. So I can quickly directly log in there. So now I'm logging into that system. And then you can see that my target is directly pointing to that my repositories there. So you can see all my payment dev local is my this one. I can go here and then go to that specific repository. See my contents here. Yeah, all my stuffs are here. Or I can go to that release bundle, and then I can, if I wanted to use that release bundle, you can see that what I have received, everything can be seen here. So that's the payment RB 40th version. Just now we received. You can do anything you want to have with this bundle at this point. So that's kind of like the process flow between your main JPD to your edge node, or maybe a secondary JPD, and then having this release bundle version 2, and then create that and then push it there. So without further delay, how are we doing with the timing? It's like 45 minutes more. Okay, that's good. So let's quickly jump on. So again, all these steps, signing the release bundle, I was going through in the UI. Again, every step what I have done can be automated. If you are using a JFrog CLI, everything can be a task within your CI process. And then once you promote that build, when you do that evidence, you might be kind of like having a step in your CLI process, sorry, in your CI process, saying that go ahead and execute the test automation suitcases. So once the suite comes back saying that, okay, everything looks good, and then you go and then promote to that the next stage in your environment. Continue to do that, sign the release bundle, and then push it to your distribution release bundle to your edge nodes, or maybe a secondary JPD. So all these step 11 can be automated within your pipeline, and then it can go seamlessly from end to end. And again, we have been seeing those action tracking here. So let's close this one. You can see that I created it, I pushed it to dev, and then I moved to QA, I moved to the prod, I moved to the edge node. Everything is tracked here. So this is the single pane of glass we were talking about to have the visibility. All your applications, everything comes here, and then you can see like in which environment, which application is staying, and then where it needs to be distributed, whether it got failed, what kind of a failure happened, is it because of some application issues or any kind of like an infrastructure issues. everything can be tied to these processes. Okay, so that's the release bundle version 2. So this is what we've been promoting lately, like, okay, start the release bundle process during the build time, the moment it gets into the dev process, dev local itself, and then take it from there. So if you go back to our distribution tab here, this is where the release bundle V1 sits here. So this is where we were talking about, like, okay, you have all your repository contents are there. So you have your prod local, have all your binaries there. There is a binary sitting inside your Maven prod local, and there is another binary sitting in a different repository by a different build process and sitting in a different, maybe a local repository in the same artifact. So now you wanted to combine them and then create a bundle and then sign it and send it to your customer base. To your edge node actually. So that's where like create bundle B1 will come in. So let's quickly jump on like how to do that. So I'm going to create here. I'm going to call it as like a payment RBV1. I'm going to call it as like a 50.0.0. And there are two different ways you can think of here. I can go ahead and then create an AQL query. AQL is like an artifactory query language. I can go ahead and then set up that. So if you look at here, I create that AQL query and then bring it here and then take it forward. Or I can go ahead, let me cancel this one. And I can go ahead and use the UI component itself to build the query behind the scenes. So now if you look at here, these are all the different repositories I have in my organization. So I can go ahead and then pick this particular one, or I can go ahead like a number of things I can add it. So I'm going to add these two one. And then you can see here, either I can go through these repositories or I can go ahead and pull that the bills I wanted to. You remember, like we talked about, there is an payment Maven -1 and then the bill number, and then I can add it and then continuously add it. I can add one to many bills also. And then I can also add the artifact properties because when you're extracting these binaries from repositories, you wanted to check out of these n number of artifacts inside this repository, I wanted to find the ones which got passed by QA. So you can say that, hey, this is an artifact property saying that QA complete. If it is yes only, bring those ones. So you can kind of like keep adding those artifact properties part of your selection criteria. And then just not only that, you can specify the naming patterns. There could be an and design patterns like you can include only the names starting with or ending with or anything middle with like specific characters. Or you can say that, hey, I just want to exclude one of these things. Maybe I don't want to include .class files. Just go ahead and say like in .class and maybe .jar, whatever you wanted to exclude it, you can exclude it. And then just not only the naming patterns and the artifact properties, you can also go by the path patterns. So if you look at the repository I was showing, I was having like an arg /JFrog /test whatnot. There are multiple different project folders. If I wanted to pull something only from the specific project folders, then I can specify that, oh, these are all the only include path patterns. Or if I wanted to exclude some of the path patterns, I can do that as well. So this is how you kind of like can go ahead and establish different selection criteria. So once you have that one, let's assume that to go ahead and say show SQL, then this is what it's going to generate. So you can see this is our query language, artifactory query language. You can see that I'm picking up the things from Acme as things test local, as well as add npm local QA. And this is the QA complete yes. Once you have these properties only, go ahead and execute it. So if I select next, then it's going to run this query and then come back and then provide what I have. So let me go ahead and remove. I don't think so I have anything with this one. So let me go ahead and remove it and say next. So here, now once I have this one, so what do if I when I send it to my across pod and then I'm saying that, okay, dump this inside in the far off artifact or artifact edge nodes, what do you want it to do that one? You can say that this is exactly we are talking about in the destination side. I can change the repository name, I can change the folder name, I can rename the folders, whatever I wanted to do that, I can do that here. Or if I wanted to say that, hey, this is bundle complete, like or maybe like a distribution complete. So this property will be added once that artifact in the far off edge node or in the artifact check. So once the artifact goes there, it will have that particular property attached to that artifact actually. So now I go ahead and say new. So now you can see that there are 72 artifacts here. So there are several files here. Probably it might take a couple of minutes to bundle it and push it. So now I have an option. So now everything is complete. Now I'm going, if I say that, okay, I'm go ahead and create it. So let's go say that, okay, go ahead and create it. So what happens is like, it builds that all the components, and then you can see that there are 72 different files are part of this one. You can say action tracking. We haven't done any kind of work with that one. And then you can see the release bundle information. So it has like different keys and values and whatnot. All those metadata goes with that particular packages. We haven't scanned it, so you might not have any information over there. So now if you go back here, either I can sign it, I can continue to edit it. I can go ahead and remove some of the contents and then say that, okay, this is only one I wanted. So let's assume that I can go ahead and change this repository or something. So I don't want anything from the other second repository. I just want only from the first repository. So you can see here, and then I can change it, and then I have only 70 artifacts instead of 74. Now, once I have my, let me go ahead and save it. So I can go ahead and sign it as well. This is the important one. So the once I signed it, it's going to be immutable after that. So I cannot change it. The only way I can, if I wanted to modify it, like create a separate version and then promote that particular version to these artifact edge nodes. So that's kind of like the thing. And then I can clone it. I can create a different clone and then work on it. Then now let's assume that we are ready to distribute. So I can go ahead and find it. And then now you can see that I have different edge nodes associated with this release bundle version saying that, okay, these are all the edge nodes that's available. You wanted to promote something. I can go ahead and say that, hey, okay, go ahead and promote this particular release bundle v1 to this particular edge node locations. So now you can see that that's the 0%. It's in the progress. It's complete. So now all the contents in that one goes into that particular edge node. So I can go here, release bundles. You can see that the payment RBV1 50th version is already here. So that's how like you send your release bundle from here to there. And again, as we spoke, if you wanted to delete from JFrog Edge node, you can delete it from your mothership itself. Let's assume that you send something which is incorrect, and then before the customer downloads it, or before your scripts are pulling it out and then deploying it to your Kubernetes clusters, you wanted to remove it from that Edge nodes, you can go ahead and fire it, and then automatically it's going to say that, okay, which instance you wanted to remove it from. I can go ahead and control everything from my from my main instance itself. So I can go back here, and then the 50th version is gone now. So before, if you think about without this, how do we manage it? Like if you have a requirement where you wanted to have your binaries closer to your compute machines, or maybe your internal teams or your external customers, having one single platform, connect all these processes, make sure that you're signing and sending it, bringing these contents at those granular levels, providing those permissions for those users who are downloading the contents. So everything is fully integrated within the same platform itself. Okay, so that's kind of like an end of our RBV1. Let's go back on our contents. So this is where we saw, and then we completed our release bundle v1. So again, when you go through that GitHub, you should be able to jump between like an RBV2 and v1. So if you go all the way to that production local, and then from there you can go ahead and set up these release bundle v1. Again, CLI distribution sector, if you go there in our documentations, there are steps for you to play around and then create this release bundle v1. And again, you need that secondary instance or the edge nodes for you to test it out to move the contents to those far off locations. Okay, so let's quickly jump and the remaining portion. We have 20 more minutes. So let's talk about JFrog Connect at a glance. So if you look at here, device management server, cloud multi-tenant SaaS. So it's definitely, you can understand here, JFrog Connect is managed by JFrog managed SaaS instance. So it's easy to use UI. If you do have devices in the field, you wanted to bring it and attach them to the JFrog Connect, and then have those device agents are installed in your IoT devices. Once you have that one, then you can push all your software contents into that IoT devices and manage those IoT devices through JFrog Connect. So if you look at here, I can send it to my, so the Artifactory here, Artifactory edge nodes are here. So you can see here that the distribution services send that packages to these edge nodes. And then you can use the JFrog Connect to send it to your IoT devices as well through the distribution services. Without further delay, let me quickly jump onto that. So if you go to that connect.jfrog.io, once you provide your authentication details, and then it will bring back to you here, like once you have your authentication is complete. If you want a trial instance, you can work with our support to get that up and running for you. And you can see here, I have my overview, and you can see my fleet. So the fleet for all my devices. So I have 3 different devices in my fleet. 2 of them are online and 1 of them is shut down. And then you can see what kind of live alerts I have, what kind of notifications I have. All those informations are available for you to see that where those devices are currently in place. You can see that a couple of them are in the San Francisco area and one in the Los Angeles area, which is currently shut down actually. So let's talk about the devices. How do we kind of like register a device? So that's the core important. Once you have that, I'm pretty much sure that you have nothing in your overview. That's the first step you wanted to see, like, and go ahead and register it. So you can see, I can go by the root user. So this is the command. I can copy it and then put it in my VM or somewhere, wherever I wanted to have this executed. Or if I am a regular user, go ahead and select that and then copy this to your clipboard and execute that command over there. Some of the optional parameters you can pass, you can see that the -n with the device name. So you can see here -n with my device name. So I could have passed saying that, okay, trial instance for the Connect demo. And then I can group multiple devices into one single group. I could call it as like a test group or a production group or whatever the group I wanted to call it. I can pass that as a parameter. And then the software version also, you can see that. So you can see here, software version is 1.0. So either you pass these optional parameters, or without that, you can fire that particular device with that one. So once you execute the command within that device, it could be a VM in Azure or somewhere else, then you can start seeing that that particular one coming is a registered devices. So if you go here, so this is where it's going to come back and say that, okay, once the registration is complete, it's going to come back and say here is like, what is the state, whatever the name you have given. And you can connect back to that particular instance by remote controlling it. So if I fire it, then it's going to have an SSL session with that. Then I can go ahead and execute anything I want. So you can see here, like in generating single use SSL encryption keys, waiting for the device communication. Let's get this complete. It should be a matter of seconds. Okay, then now it's ready. Now if I fire it, and then I should be able to connect it in a second. So now I'm inside my device actually. So if whatever I wanted to do, I can log in from here. Think about that, like you have hundreds and hundreds of devices in field managing globally some kind of project in IoT, and then you wanted to control everything from one single platform. You can connect it from here and then do whatever you want with that particular device here. So let's close this guy. And if you go further here, let's go and talk about alerts. Because once you have your devices up and running, you can see like in different options are available. I can see the technical details. I can see the general details. I can also go ahead and fetch those logs from those devices. I can do that as well. And then you can see my CPU usage, RAM usage, everything can be tracked as well. And let's talk about the alerts. Because the moment you have your applications up and running, you wanted to make sure that the device is not offline. So you can create custom alerts You can create an alerts, and then let's assume I can go ahead and create an alert here. And then I can also create an alert channel. So it could be an existing alert channel, it could be an email, or it could be a webhook, because the moment the device goes down, you want to take this payload and then call your legacy application and escalate that into an, or maybe some other application kicks in. You can do that through your webhook, or you just an plain simple email you wanted to send it, you can do that as well. You can go by the resource monitor and say that, hey, if a trigger, if it's like greater than 50% or whatever the percentage you are coming back, you can do that. Or you can just go ahead and look at the processes which are running in the application, within the devices. So those are all the two different alert types, resource level as well as the process level. So in the resource level, you can see that I can monitor CPU, RAM, disk, device state. So I can check all this devices. Once I have this alert created, once I selected my channels, I can also select the devices by the groups. I can say that, okay, everything inside all my groups should be tagged with this alert type, or I can subset them. I don't want to worry about my test or some of my EMEA fleet regions, but any of my production ones, I need to make sure that the escalation happens when the device goes off, the CPU goes more than 50%, or maybe the process is down or something. So all those things can be bundled together, part of these notifications. Again, if you look at here, this is an enterprise grade, like this is exactly what you wanted to see, like if some of your processes goes down, or some of your resources are out of sync. Okay, so that's how like you set up all those alerts. Now, if you look at here, the updates. So this is where we create the update flow. So now we have uploaded a brand new device into this connect, and then it's up and running. And then I have set up my alert processes. Now I need to say, okay, what do I want to push the content into my device? So this is a workflow kind of thing. You can kind of like in a drag and drop, and then build your command cycle like in exactly what you want it to do. I can connect to Artifactory, and then I can say that, hey, go ahead and pull this specific artifact from this particular Artifactory path, because I created the bundle over there, and that bundle needs to be deployed part of this workflow. So I can go ahead and extract that by providing, because this is already connected to this particular JFrog account. And then I can say that, okay, inside the generic repo, that's my 1.0 file.txt. Go ahead and pull that and then deploy in this particular path. So you can specify the artifact, you can specify where it needs to go, and then keep adding those one. And then you specify like if it fails, what do you want to do? You wanted to do that revert all the files, or any other actions you want to take, specify all those things. That's for one simple block. So like that, you can kind of like build any kind of blocks you can think of. I can create a release bundle and then utilize it, or I can go by just by the artifacts. I can connect to your source code repository, and then maybe like in this way, I can create a Git repository first, create a build process followed by a Git repository, and then push it to Artifactory, and then create the release bundle, and then extract the release bundle through a script, and then deploy the files into my app. So all those things can be added part of my workflow. So you can go ahead and set that up. So now let's assume that you have already set it up. Then it's going to come back and say that, okay, I created this workflow and so that time, and then these are all my statuses. I can delete the workflow, or I can go ahead and then fire a deployment. So if let's assume that I can go ahead and update and deployment. Once the deployment is complete, then it's going to come back and say that, okay, what happened with the deployment, whether initiated by the prop, and then you can see that statuses here. So if you look at here, you can see that how many devices got that. Is it one device has got successfully? Initially, you can see that the pending will be like in whatever the number of devices we are trying to push in, and then the status gets moved based on the success or fail. And then this looks like pushed into only one device, and then it got successfully deployed into that one. So that's how kind of like you run that. And then the rest of the information, I can go ahead and then extract the logs as we were speaking. You can remote to that particular device, go to that log folder, extract that particular device itself. You can see here, I can go to this particular device, and then whatever the log path, go and fetch it. And then you can see that it got fetched, then download, and then whatever we wanted to do, some kind of analysis after that. Yeah, that's definitely possible. We talked about the remote control, the remote access, and the remote commands. I can go ahead and create a command and save it here, and then have that multiple times executed here. So you can see some of the things like get store data, restart, get networking, get file system. All those commands can be saved for future use and then execute it and then see what kind of actions happen. And again, data. So let's assume that you have some parameters you are monitoring. You can see that some of the devices in your store, I wanted to check the temperature. And how do we do that? Like, how do we take the data from those devices and feeding to this platform? So REST API calls are available. You can configure in your devices inside the store saying that, okay, go ahead and send this payload to this connect. You can go ahead and set it up, and then that information can be consolidated in that. So it is just not like, one way from connect to those devices. From devices back to the connect, you can extract those data, and then you can fully synthesize it and then make sure that whatever the business decisions you have to make it, either you need to install a new software or kind of like any kind of like in a back and flow mechanism transfers between the connect to the devices, back from the devices to the connect is possible. Okay, and more docs can be found inside here. If you go here, there are several documentations available for you to play around. You can see like in how you can scale it in different ways. On the flow we talked about deploying the files, updating the files, run the scripts. Yeah, all those informations are available for you to use it. Okay, so I think we are currently somewhere around like in the last 15 minutes. So look at here. Yep, we did this distribution to connect. So without further delay, I'm handing over back to Bill.
Thank you so much. That was so informative. I'm so glad. You did an amazing job. I hope everybody got a really good sense of what distribution means. And we actually gave a little teaser there on Connect. We will be doing a huge in-depth one on December 13th with Eric Adelson, who is another member of our team here. But Anantha, thank you so much for this. Please keep, if you guys did have issues with the trial, we'll be sending follow-up emails on this. Please keep trying. There have been a couple of issues with the trial instances that we had. We're resolving them right now. Also, too, when it comes to IoT, please join our December 13th discussion. Windows devices, I saw somebody just ask this right now. Currently, right now, it's only Linux-based devices. We might release it in the future for Windows-based devices. So keep an ear out for that. But yes, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Anantha, amazing job. And like I said, all this recording will be available afterwards. You'll be receiving an email with the information on also the follow-up when it came to things like the gift cards and whatnot. But that's all we have for today. And thank you so much. We'll give everybody back a little bit of time so maybe they can get some lunch if they're on the West Coast or whatnot. Anantha, you are amazing and honored to do this with you. But look forward to our next discussion on December 13th. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Be safe, be wonderful, be well. We really appreciate you attending today. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.